Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. It is Super Bowl week. We got all kinds of stuff to talk about. I got the Matthew Stafford, Jared Goff trade coming up in just a second. I'll react to that. I'll also talk about Tom Brady. And today was kind of media day, at least for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We haven't gotten really anything from the Kansas City Chiefs. So we may get some stuff tomorrow or tonight as the night goes on. So glad you're with us on a Monday. Also going to talk about Klay Thompson and his somewhat controversial comments, and Draymond Green's as well about Rodney McGruder. If you don't know who he is, well, neither does most people. And so just all kinds of stuff to talk about today. But, of course, I have to start with the blockbuster trade that happened Saturday night. I'm just chilling. I'm watching the Lakers play the Celtics, and I'm actually watching, again, I'm just, talking about the Warriors. I was actually watching the Warriors game, simultaneously, and all of a sudden, I get a notification on my phone from Adam Schefter. I'm in the loop with Schefter and in the NBA, Woj, and also in the NFL, Ian Rappaport. I keep up with these people, right? You want to get the latest news. And it said Matthew Stafford traded to the Detroit Lions for 2 first-round picks, a third-rounder. I believe they said additional picks as well, and Jared Goff. And I was like, okay. And I slept on it, and I've thought about it for the last 48 hours. Really the last 36 hours if you think about it. But just been thinking about it, and I'm like, okay, the Rams are going for it. The Rams showed they clearly do not believe in Jared Goff. And they showed they obviously believe Matthew Stafford can be the guy to get them to the promised land. And some people are freaking out, oh, they gave up more first-round picks. Look at their history. That's what they do. They gave up a first-round pick for Brandon Cooks. They gave up a first-round pick for Jalen Ramsey. That one definitely worked out. Jalen Ramsey's the best corner in all of football. You've obviously got Aaron Donald, who is not just the best defensive player in football, but one of the greatest defensive players we've ever seen. So you got him. You obviously have other playmakers on that defense. And so you've got that taken care of. They're the best defense overall, the best scoring defense in the NFL this season. And so you're like, okay, how's this? What was the issue? Was Goff the issue? And you heard more than ever, for years, coaches, one of the things they have to do at press conferences, right, is they got to defend their players, right? They got to defend if their player makes a mistake, they got to defend him. If he does something wrong, turnovers, you kind of have to defend him unless it's indefensible, obviously. And Sean McVay, this year more than any other year, did not defend Jared Goff. Matter of fact, he would openly criticize him to the media. It sounds a lot like what Bruce Arians would do with Tom Brady early this season with the Bucs. And he would criticize his turnovers, obviously, among other things. And so I just look at it and I say, okay, what did Jared Goff do with the Rams in the 5 years he was there? Well, obviously, let's take out his rookie year. That's not fair. Okay, he was under Jeff Fisher, and then I don't even know who their interim head coach was, because Jeff Fisher got fired. And so what was next for Jared Goff? Well, Jared Goff in the 4 seasons that followed had a great year in 2017. 3,800 yards, 28 touchdowns, 7 picks. Okay, that's not bad. He had a phenomenal year in 2018. Almost 4,700 yards, 32 touchdowns, 12 picks, and a quarterback rating, or a passer rating, I should say, of 101. That'll work. But then the next year, he takes a little dip. Throws for, 4,600 yards. That's all right. But 22 touchdowns and 16 picks. Okay, that's not going to work. And then this year, even when the Rams get to the playoffs, he misses 1 game due to the broken thumb. It was the last game of the season that Wolford had to start, the back quarterback. And he threw 3,900 yards, 20 touchdowns, 13 picks. That doesn't sound like a guy that can take you to the Super Bowl. You say, well, he took him to the Super Bowl in 2018. Rams got a lot of breaks in the playoffs in 2018. Okay, so obviously they had the week off because they got the 2 seed. They played Dallas, who was incredible defensively up to that point, but for some reason or another, they just flat out didn't show up that Saturday night in Los Angeles in the old Coliseum. And so the Rams run all over him. C.J. Anderson, Todd Gurley, they just run all over Dallas, and they advance. Jared Goff really doesn't have to do much of anything. And then they play the NFC Championship. They play the Saints in the NFC Championship game in New Orleans. And give the Rams credit where credit's due. They took advantage of the Saints' mistakes. And I've defended the Rams and the NFL on that missed pass interference call late in that football game. But at the same time, you did need that pass interference or the lack thereof of a call for pass interference late in that fourth quarter to have a chance to win that game. Okay, so they got lucky there. And then once they play the New England Patriots, after Nick Foles the year prior put up 41 points on a Belichick-led defense, Belichick coach defense, Jared Goff puts up 3. And by the way, the Rams defense did their job in that game. They held Tom Brady to 13 points. If you had told a Rams fan going in with that high-powered offense, hey, you're going to hold the Patriots offense to 13, you'd have been like, oh, here we go. We're going to be champions. No, not quite. Lost by 2 scores. And it's like, okay, that Sean McVay does deserve blame for that game. I did not think he called a good football game whatsoever. But at the same time, I mean, that's not going to get it done. And so Stafford is obviously an upgrade from Jared Goff. But I'll say this about Matt Stafford that I said on Friday's show when, the rumors and the speculations were out, he's going to get traded, is he's obviously talented. I mean, I'm just looking at stats right now. He's clearly one of the most talented quarterbacks we have in the league. But we've had plenty of talent come into the NFL and not win. And I said on Friday, can you please name me one signature Matthew Stafford win? You don't have one. He's never won a playoff game. He's never even won a division. Okay? And there were years, by the way, Aaron Rodgers, 2013, I think the Lions were like 7-3 over the first 10 games of the season. And they wound up finishing like 8-8. And that Aaron Rodgers was hurt that year, most of the year. And Packers still won the division. He came back in week 17 against the Bears, and everybody remembers the 4th down touchdown pass to Randall Cobb. But again, Matt Stafford has the Cowboys on the ropes in the wild card game in 2014, and doesn't make that signature play. And this is the guy, we say with Detroit's a dysfunctional organization. Yeah, they're a train wreck. They've been a poorly run organization for the last, 30, 40 years? That's a long time. And 2 of their greatest players ever, Barry Sanders, who I consider the greatest running back of all time because he would have been the all-time leading rusher had he not retired after 9 seasons, but that's a different conversation for a different show. But Barry Sanders, in the prime of his career, said, I'm out. Okay. Calvin Johnson, one of the greatest receivers ever, a guy who I believe is absolutely a Hall of Famer. He's eligible this year along with Peyton Manning and Charles Woodson. And I know Jared Allen was, who's a great pass rusher. He's eligible. Calvin Johnson is a first ballot Hall of Famer because in his 9 years, I think he and Barry both played 9 years, 2 of the greatest Lions players ever. Calvin Johnson in his 9 years was one of the greatest receivers of all time. There's no debate. Look at his numbers. Matt Stafford had that guy. Okay. Matt Stafford had a top 10 defense in 2014, like I mentioned, and they were one and done in the playoffs. He had guys like Golden Tate. He had guys like Marvin Jones, really, really good receiver. He was a good receiver with Andy Dalton in Cincinnati for a while. Kenny Golladay is a guy I really like. If he was put in the right offensive system, I think he'd be incredible. He reminds me a little bit of Mike Evans, a little bit. You say Mike Evans, he's a great receiver. Galladay's a great receiver. He's certainly got a ton of potential. And so this is Matthew Stafford's opportunity. He's got the coach. Nobody's denying. He's got Sean McVay. He definitely has the defense. I mean, the 2 best defensive players in the league at their position. Okay, amongst other really, really, really talented defensive players. He's got the weapons. Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp, Higbee. Cam Akers was really good last year. I thought the Rams would struggle a little bit last year to run the ball. He's got a great running back, Cam Akers. He's got a great offensive line. He's got everything. Okay. And you say, well, he's in the same division as, Russell Wilson. A lot of chaos in Seattle right now. Okay. I mean, did you see the Seahawks offense the last month and a half of the season? It was hard to watch at times. So no, listen, I agree with the trade. I think the Rams clearly won the trade. They got the upgrade in quarterback. And what are they going to use those first-round picks on? For real, what are they going to use it on? They haven't had a first-round pick since Jared Goff in 2016. And they've seemed to do pretty successful, right? Do pretty well, right? Without any first-round picks. And so I think the Rams absolutely, unequivocally won the trade. And so, yeah, I'm not worried about. I'm not worried about that. Whether they're getting an upgrade or not at quarterback. We know they're going to get an upgrade at quarterback. We know that if they're healthy, the Rams are going to be a playoff team next year. Division champion. I don't know if it, depending on who the 49ers quarterback is next year, is probably going to decide. I can't pick Seattle, and I know it's way early. We're another. Let's see. Today is February 1st. We're another 7 months away from the start of the season. I can't pick who's going to win that division quite yet, but certainly the Rams will be a playoff team next year because there are 7 playoff teams per conference. And so you look across the board, Matt Stafford has the most help he has ever had. There's nobody could debate that. And he's in a great owner. Stan Kroenke's a great owner. Les Snead's a great general manager. And Sean McVay is a brilliant young offensive head coach. He's got the weapons. He's got the running game. He's got the offensive line. He's got the defense. I mean, what more could you really want if you're Matt Stafford? You've got everything now. You went from having great receivers but not much else to, I got everything. I got the coach. I got the general manager who's going to put help around me to support me. I've got the running back. I got the offensive line, the receivers, and a good tight end and great defensive players on the other side that's going to get turnovers, set up short field. It's all in front of Matthew Stafford now. So we'll see. Again, clearly the Lions held him back. They hold a lot of players back. They wasted the career of both Calvin Johnson and Barry Sanders, 2 of the best players ever at their position. They wasted those careers. But it's all in front of Matthew Stafford now, and we'll see. So I'll discuss this trade in depth a little later. I'll also just, Matt Stafford also had one team. He told the Lions, he said, you can trade me anywhere you want except for one team. I'll discuss that a little later in the show. You want to stay tuned for that. And also discuss what this means for Jared Goff, who is now, of course, no longer an LA Ram. But I got to start, I got to discuss Tom Brady right now. And Tom Brady told ESPN, I believe it was ESPN, it was his media day for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And he said that they asked him if he would consider, because a few years ago on the Tom versus Time documentary on Facebook Watch, he said that, yeah, I'd love to play to 45. I think I can play till 45. Well, they asked him if he could play beyond that point. And he said, definitely, I'd consider that. He said, it's a physical sport. Just the perspective I have on is that you never know when that moment is, just because it's a contact sport. There's a lot of training that goes into it, and it has to be 100% commitment from myself to keep doing it. Okay, so commitment's never been an issue for Tom Brady, so that's not just going to run out, I don't think. His dad, Tom Sr., once said that you're going to have to drag Tom away from football. He's not just going to walk away. You're going to have to drag him away from the game. And, at this point, why retire? You're still going to Super Bowls with even an organization like Tampa Bay, which hasn't exactly been known for winning, at least since they won the Super Bowl almost 20 years ago. Since that, they haven't really done much at all. They hadn't been in the playoffs up until this year in like 12, 13 years. So it had been a second since the Bucs have been relevant, and Tom Brady shows up, and they're a win away from being Super Bowl champions. It goes to show you the effect of Tom and the talent on that roster as well. But so the question is, can Tom Brady play past, a few years ago, can he play to 45? It's like, no, he can't play to 45. He's 43, and the Bucs are going to be a win away from the Super Bowl. Or not from the Super Bowl, they're in the Super Bowl, a win away from hoisting the Lombardi Trophy, and Tom Brady's a win away from winning his 7th ring. And I discussed last Monday, I believe at this point, he is a win away. He's a win away from surpassing Michael Jordan, who I believe is the greatest American athlete of all time. Tom Brady's a win away from surpassing Jordan as the greatest American athlete we've ever seen. Obviously, Muhammad Ali and Serena Williams and Michael Phelps. We've had some great, Babe Ruth, Hank Aaron. We've had some great, great, great athletes in America. Tom, I believe, surpasses them all if he wins on Sunday. And of course, obviously I'll predict the Super Bowl later in the week. I haven't, knock on something. There's no wood over here. I haven't missed a prediction in a few weeks, but I'll predict the Super Bowl, of course, later in the week. The point is, Tom Brady he can play as long as he wants. And I know that's not what you're going to hear from ESPN or Fox Sports or any other news sports media outlet. Okay. Tom Brady can play as long as he wants. And here's why. And it's why the Kansas City Chiefs, I believe, are the next dynasty. The rules today, now, of course, the rules can change. Of course, we know that. But, why we haven't been given any indication that they will change. The rules today, offense can do whatever they want. You can't hit the quarterback. You can really barely touch the receivers. The only guy you can really hit is the running back. That's why anytime a running back holds out of training camp, I always defend them. Because I'm like, yeah, you only get one contract and you're the only unprotected player in the sport. They protect the kickers and the punters. They don't protect the running back. And so with the quarterback, you can't hit him. If you land on top of him, and by the way, I agree with this rule because a lot of quarterbacks were sustaining shoulder injuries, right? Because they, come down and they land on their shoulder, and it, break like a clavicle or their collarbone, whatever. But the rules today, you can't really touch the quarterback. You can't really touch the receivers or the tight end. And that's why I say Tom can play as long as he wants. He can. I mean, you see the level he's playing now. He's still, it was really the reason I believe the Saints were not Super Bowl contenders going into the playoffs is Drew Brees showed incredible. Just the decline for Drew Brees was unbelievable from last year to this year. He couldn't throw it down the field. Now, according to his wife, he played with a torn rotator cuff, which certainly I wouldn't consider that an excuse. I consider that a reason. But Drew could not push the ball down the field. Phillip Rivers could not push the ball down the field. Big Ben, it was hard to watch sometimes. He really couldn't push the ball down the field. And Tom Brady sometimes throws it too hard. At 43, he's the oldest among the guys I mentioned. And sometimes you got to worry about him throwing it too hard to the receivers. Yes, Tom can play as long as he wants. And I actually have an age. Let this live in carving up history. I predict Tom Brady will play to the age of 47. 50, that's 7 years out. That's a long time. If he plays to 50, good on him. He's 43 now. He's playing in his 10th Super Bowl. The NFC doesn't look as, I think the Chiefs are the next dynasty. But in Tampa Bay's case, the NFC doesn't look as intimidating as it used to be. Green Bay's going to be there, right? As long as Aaron Rodgers is in Green Bay, they're always going to have a shot. Seattle is going in a clunky direction, right? They hired a new offensive coordinator. We don't know what's going to happen with that. The entire NFC East, although I respect Washington, is kind of trash. Okay? The Rams have Matthew Stafford. We have yet to see how that works out. If the 49ers are not able to trade for Deshaun Watson, I don't really worry about them. So, who am I missing? The Saints are not going to be what they used to be. They're probably Jameis Winston's probably going to be the starter next year. Am I going to get 30 interception Jameis Winston or Jameis Winston, who is the first overall pick in the draft? So, Atlanta is really a mess. And also in that division, I like Carolina. I like the direction Carolina's going. I like Matt Rule a lot. But can they? Nobody looks at Carolina as a Super Bowl contender now. Come on. So in the NFC today, the path is as clear as ever. It is as clear as that. Trevor Lawrence is going to be the number 1 overall pick. He's going to the AFC. He's going to be a Jaguar. So the Bucs don't have to worry about them. And so that combined with the fact that the rules strongly benefit offense and receivers and quarterbacks, I believe Tom Brady will retire at the age of 47, which is crazy. So that would make him that'd be a quarter century. That would mean Tom Brady had a 25-year career. I think it's absolutely possible. 47, put it in the books. Tom Brady will play till he is 47 years old. He's 43 today. He'll play till he's 47. Book it. So let's get back to this Lions trade. Obviously, Matt Stafford is now a Detroit Lion. I like So these guys, I'm looking at the graphic right there. These people that do these, this graphic design and putting these uniforms on players that recently got traded or signed somewhere in free agency. Hey, y'all are some talented people, man. But Matt Stafford told the Lions organization, he said, listen, this is according to Tom Curran from the Boston sports area. He's as good of a reporter as there is. And Matt Stafford told Detroit, he said, listen, you can trade me wherever I don't care. I mean, preferably to a contender, but you can trade me anywhere you want, except the New England Patriots. And it goes to what I've said for the last year or so, about a year and a half. It's towards the end of that 2019 season. The Patriots that year, they start 8-0. We're like, oh man, Patriots going to be here forever. And then towards the end of that season, once they start playing better teams, Baltimore and Kansas City and Houston, they lose all three of those games. They lost to the Dolphins. I'm trying to remember the other game they lost because I think they went 11-5. No, they went 12-4. They went 12-4, I think. Those are the 4 games they lost were to Kansas City, Baltimore, Miami, and Houston. All at that point were better teams than New England was. Obviously, Baltimore went on to be the number 1 seed. Kansas City went on to be the Super Bowl champions. We see the direction Miami's going, okay, and they really started to trend in that direction last season towards the back half of the 2019 season. The Dolphins look to be going in the right direction, and Houston obviously is a mess now, but they still have DeAndre Hopkins. And so once they started playing teams with elite defenses, Tom Brady didn't have anybody to throw to. Julian Edelman was a shell of himself. Really sadly for Julian Edelman, he's never really been the same player since he tore his ACL a few years ago. I joked in 2019 on the show that James White was their best receiver. James White is a running back. That's a problem. If you're running, unless you're Christian McCaffrey or Alvin Kamara, if your running back is the best receiver on your team, there's a problem. We got a big, big problem. And New England had that. And so I campaigned at the end of December. I said, listen, Tom Brady, get out of there. Get out of New England while you can. You got a golden opportunity to capitalize on the last few years of your career. And you can't do it in Foxborough anymore. Okay? Worst receiving core in the NFL. By the way, Tom Brady this year with an actual receiving core, which obviously I complained all year in 2019, he didn't have. He did in 2020, and he threw 40 touchdown passes. You want to know how many touchdown passes the New England Patriots quarterbacks as a whole? I'm talking about Hoyer, Stidham, and Cam Newton. The 3 quarterbacks that played for the New England Patriots this year combined, 3 guys threw 10. Tom Brady threw 40 with his new receiving core. New England's quarterbacks combined threw a grand total of 10. That's an issue. That's a big problem the Patriots have to solve. And that's why Matthew Stafford didn't want to go there. He's like, look, I had Megatron. I had Marvin Jones. I had Golden Tate. I had Roy Williams even. I had Kenny Galladay. I'm not going from that to Julian Edelman and Matt Lacoste and Jacoby Myers. I don't want to do that. I want to be the contender. And by the way, New England's, this factors in too. I've heard a lot of people in the media say, part of the reason he didn't want to go there is because Matt Patricia, the former head coach of the Lions that got fired after their game on Thanksgiving this year, obviously a bad hire from the start. None of the players liked him at all. And people are like, he didn't want to go there because Matt Patricia was rehired to the Patriots coaching staff. He's like, he just wanted to avoid Matt Patricia. Possibly, but again, LeBron James went back to Cleveland to an owner, the owner of the team, not a coach that's now an assistant. No, the owner of the Cleveland Cavaliers, Dan Gilbert, basically, just ripped him in the newspapers after LeBron left for the Heat. So I don't think, Matthew Stafford seems like an emotionally tough guy. Seems like it. He's certainly a physically tough guy because he's played through all kinds of injuries. He actually threw a game-winning touchdown pass on a separated shoulder. And so I don't think he's like, it's uncomfortable over there. I don't want to be around. I don't think that was it. I think it has everything to do with where did Matt Patricia get this kind of arrogance and get this sort of old school style? Bill Belichick. He's like, I don't want. And again, I don't think I've said for a while, I don't think Belichick's the greatest coach ever. I said this when Brady was with him. So this isn't hindsight like, now that Belichick went 7-9, he's not the greatest coach anymore. I never thought he was. Okay, because he without Tom Brady, he had a losing record. I believe 8 of his 10 seasons as a head coach without Tom Brady, he's missed the playoffs. That's a problem. Okay, that Bill Walsh worked with every quarterback. And then once he got Joe Montana, they won multiple Super Bowls. Bill Walsh, I consider the greatest ever. I think Vince Lombardi, Tom Landry, I would put both of those guys ahead of Belichick. Chuck Noll, it's, Bill Parcells. There's been some great coaches that have worked with multiple quarterbacks. Belichick's only worked with one. You say, well, it's the greatest ever. Yeah, Cam Newton. Cam Newton isn't MVP Cam. He's pretty darn good. And the Patriots offense was a wreck last year, which is why Matthew Stafford's like, why don't I just go to the Rams or anybody else? Because I said last year and this year, the Patriots had easily the worst receiving core in the National Football League. Anywhere else I go is going to have a better receiving core. Easily. I don't want them to make my job harder, okay? I've already dealt with injuries. And again, as I said at the beginning of the show, Matt Stafford, he's got everything in front of him now. Running game, defense, receivers, coach, general manager to put talent around him. He's got everything now. There's no excuses anymore. And so, to go to New England, how's that going to help me? I'm not going to win a championship over there. Tom Brady couldn't get out of the wild card round with that same New England roster. I can't get to the playoffs, especially with Buffalo, being 13-3 and, seem to, go in the right direction is an understatement. Buffalo is a great football team. They just ran into the next possible dynasty, the Kansas City Chiefs. You look at Miami. I love the direction Miami's going. I think Miami is a quarterback away from being a true Super Bowl contender. The Jets hired Robert Saleh. They may or may not get Deshaun Watson soon. Who knows? And so he's like, I'm not going to the best or the worst team in the AFC East. Okay, I can't do that. And so, this report, it kind of made me laugh, but it didn't shock me at all. It just goes to prove everything that I've said about this. It's not like the Patriots are like a dysfunctional organization or anything. It's not. But, man, they cannot find good receivers for some reason. I don't get it. I mean, outside of Randy Moss, Wes Welker, obviously Gronk's a tight end. Who have they really? How many great? Edelman's never made a Pro Bowl. Okay, Edelman's a very good receiver, or was a very good receiver. He was never people talk about, is Edelman a Hall of Famer? Heck no, he's not a Hall of Famer. You gotta make the Pro Bowl to at least qualify. Come on now. Matthew Stafford's absolutely right in saying, trade me anywhere. Just as long as it's not New England, I'm good. And he's going to an organization that is, are they Super Bowl contenders with Matthew Stafford? That's the question at this point. I think it's too early to tell. Again, I really, really want to see who San Francisco's quarterback is next season. Because as much as I like Garoppolo, but he can't stay healthy, and he's too darn inconsistent sometimes. And then in Seattle, I think Russell Wilson's a top 3 quarterback in football, but who's their next offensive coordinator? Because their last one was old school, run. When you got Russell Wilson, and their offense was bad the last month of the season. Just go look at the numbers. So we'll see if the Rams are contenders. Now, the Rams' old quarterback, Jared Goff, is now a Detroit Lion. First of all, my deepest sympathies and condolences to Jared Goff that he is now a member of a Detroit franchise. And I'm sorry to all those from Detroit watching or listening to the show. So I've never talked about Detroit sports in one show as much as today. I'm about to talk about a Detroit Pistons player. I don't know I don't know what it is with Detroit today, but hey, it is what it is sometimes. But Jared Goff, question is, can he revitalize his career in Detroit? No. And as bad as I hate to say, I don't ever like saying, I don't ever like declaring, oh, his career's over or her career's over. Jared Goff's career's over. It's done. Unless he gets traded midseason somewhere else or he gets cut possibly because of his massive contract, Jared Goff is done. If Jared Goff couldn't work with Sean McVay, great receiving core, running game, offensive line, phenomenal defense, and a general manager in Les Snead who is more than happy to put the talent around him, spend the money, give up the draft picks, and Jared Goff still could never quite get to what they thought he was as the number 1 overall pick in the draft in 2016, you think he's going to work with Detroit? With Dan Campbell, the new head coach who's talking about biting kneecaps off? I mean, come on now. Detroit has a bad defense, an average offensive line. They cannot and have not been able to since Barry Sanders. They cannot run the football. They're allergic to it at this point. As I said, though, with Matthew Stafford, they do have good receivers, but you put Jared Goff in a division with Aaron Rodgers, and I would even take Kirk Cousins over Jared Goff. And so outside of 2018, if Jared Goff wasn't putting up unbelievable numbers in LA with the Rams, are you telling me he's just going to, out of nowhere, look like Patrick Mahomes in Detroit? You're sadly mistaken. That's not going to happen. That is not going to happen. And again, it's funny about the 2016 draft as far as quarterbacks. There's only a single quarterback left from that draft that has not been cut, traded, or benched. His name is Dak Prescott. But that's neither here nor there. I forgot Dak couldn't throw and he wasn't that good. And he's just a terrible quarterback and whatever. But, that's another story for another day. But I feel bad for Jared Goff. I do. Because of the general manager, Les Snead, the head coach, Sean McVay, we're kind of taking shots at him. Not unjustified, certainly. It's not like they were just taking unneeded shots at Jared Goff, but at this point, what does the Rams? I mean, the Rams clearly did not believe that with this guy they could go back to the Super Bowl. Because again, I said in 2018 he was unbelievable, but in the playoffs they needed break after break after break after break. You need breaks to win a championship. Everybody knows that. Some sort of luck, if we're going to use that term. But if it's just this after this after this after this, that's a problem. And Jared Goff was clearly not the quarterback of the future with the Rams. They clearly were not bought into him over the second half of the season last year, maybe the last two seasons in general. Feel bad for him going to a dysfunctional Lions organization. But if Matthew Stafford, who's way more talented than Jared Goff, if he couldn't work there, and part of that's on Matthew Stafford, but also part of it is on the Lions organization. If he couldn't work, Jared Goff's not going to work. He's not going to last long with the Detroit Lions, and his contract is going to look worse by the day. He's getting paid like $32, $33 million a year. That's not looking so hot if you're a Detroit Lions fan. So let me talk about one of my favorite players in the NBA, Klay Thompson. Now, Klay is was the sideline reporter for the Warriors game against the Detroit. Again, I'm talking about Detroit a lot today. He was the sideline reporter for the Warriors when they were playing the Pistons on Saturday night. And Klay was hilarious. He's got jokes. Klay's just a naturally funny guy. I don't know if he's trying to be. He's almost Kawhi Leonard-esque. They call Kawhi the fun guy. That's kind of Klay to an extent. He's not, crazy extrovert, which is totally fine, right? But he's just kind of got that personality. Everybody likes Klay. Even when the Warriors were like the supervillains, everybody likes Klay. How could you not? But Klay was, towards the end of that basketball game, Golden State's blowing out Detroit. It's late in the fourth quarter. Game's long been decided. And Klay Thompson says, there's a little scuffle down on the floor. And Rodney McGruder, who's a bench warmer, let's call it what it is. He's a bench warmer with the Pistons. He goes up to one of the Warriors players, Juan Toscano, who's actually from the Oakland area, by the way, who, he was going right in Juan Toscano's face and, kind of, starting to a scuffle, if you will. And the announcers for the Warriors, they asked Klay, I said, what's going down there? And he said, no, it's nothing. He said, this dude might be out of the league soon. He might be mad about that. Who knows? Okay. And Draymond Green roasted Rodney McGruder after the game. He said, I don't know. I was in the locker room. Basically, when this happened, Draymond was already in the locker room. He said, I don't know. I was in the locker room, but apparently he was taking up for Wayne Ellington. When the bleep did Rodney McGruder become the tough guy? I don't know, man. Everybody in the league, tough guy these days. It's crazy. I've seen a lot of tough guys this year. And so, Draymond's got a point. And I'll defend them because Rodney McGruder, let me look at Rodney McGruder, his stats. And again, when we criticize players, okay, we're not criticizing their character. Rodney McGruder may be the nicest guy in the world. I don't know anything about him. He may be a great dude, but Rodney McGruder is not a great NBA basketball player. This season, he's averaging 3 points, 1 rebound, and does not have one single assist. Over the course of his career, he's played 222 games. He's averaged 6 points, 3 rebounds, 1 assist. Well, yeah, I wouldn't think his career would last too much longer. He's He's not a great player. He's not even a guy you can count on consistently coming off the bench. So, and by the way, Klay's just taking after his teammate. Draymond is just taking after his teammate. So people like, oh, that crossed the line. I saw Big Baby Davis, Glenn Davis, right, won that 2008 championship with the Celtics. And he was saying, oh, it's karma or whatever. And this is why Klay has been out for the last 2 years with injury. Stop it. Come on, man. You're better than that. Come on. You think Klay Thompson just dislikes Rodney McGruder as a person? He probably didn't know who this man was up until obviously Saturday night. And so he's saying look, he's not going to be in the league much longer. Klay knows what a great player looks like. Draymond knows what a great player looks like. Rodney McGruder is not a great player. And it doesn't take, you don't have to be an NBA player to recognize that. I just read you his stats. He averages over the course of his career 6 points. And this season he's averaging 3 points. Let's be smart about this now. And so I have absolutely zero issue with Klay Thompson and Draymond Green with making the comments they did. It's just, I don't get why people take things so personally nowadays. We're not criticizing. Players don't criticize other players' character in these situations. Media members, podcasters like myself, those that are on the radio and television, we're not criticizing the player. Or excuse me, we're not criticizing the person. We're not again, Rodney McGruder may be a great human being. Who knows? I don't know anything about him. But he's not a good NBA player. He's I always say, are you telling the truth? Is Klay Thompson telling the truth? Well, possibly. He might be out of the league this year. Draymond Green, is he telling the truth that there's all these fake tough guys? He's definitely telling the truth there. Draymond, Patrick Beverley, those are dudes you straight up don't want to mess with. Steven Adams, right? You don't want to mess with Steven Adams. Even LeBron. Nobody in their right mind would mess with LeBron on the court. Nobody's scared of Rodney McGruder or Wayne Ellington. Nobody's scared of those guys. James Johnson, I don't know where he is now. I think he's with the Timberwolves, but I remember he's with the Heat, and I remember hearing he had a black belt or something. I'm like, okay, I would know if I'm a player. Don't screw with James Johnson, So this is a situation they're just they're defending their teammates, and Draymond especially, even more than Klay, was just speaking facts. There are too many fake tough guys, if you will, in the NBA today, and so no, I have absolutely zero issue with what they said. They're not criticizing. They're not saying Rodney McGruder is this terrible human being or Wayne Ellington is this terrible human being, but they're just saying, Rodney's probably not going to be in the league much longer. Which is probably true. Is it true? Okay, then I don't have an issue with it. By the way, about the Warriors as well, obviously I'm a big Golden State fan. You're like, why are you wearing a Red Sox hat today? Well, I'm wearing a Red Sox hat because, my man Dustin Pedroia retired today. One of my favorite players. Dustin Pedroia and David Ortiz, those are the two reasons I became a Red Sox fan. Because Dustin Pedroia is, gritty and tough player. And David Ortiz, Big Papi, my guy, was Mr. October. Okay. And no disrespect to Reggie Jackson. David Ortiz was Mr. October. How many clutch hits did he have in his Red Sox career? But Dustin Pedroia retired today. Wish you the best, man. So that's why I'm wearing my Red Sox hat today. But one final topic for today, sticking with the NBA, is a game a lot of people are talking about. And that was the Nets and the Wizards. Now, the Wizards came into this game. They'd only won 3 games. They're 3-11, worst record in basketball. And so not a good basketball team. And the Brooklyn Nets, we've criticized their defense all year long. The Brooklyn Nets gave up in regulation. This game did not go to overtime. The Nets gave up 149 points to the Washington Wizards. Okay. And by the way, that final sequence, you could see the graphic there. That final sequence of the game, okay, Brooklyn's up 5 and they dribble up the floor. The Wizards dribble up the floor and Bradley Beal hits a 3 with 7 seconds left. Joe Johnson makes one of the worst inbound passes I've ever seen. And I think it was Bertans. I think Bertans caught the inbound pass, kicked it out to Westbrook, who's a terrible 3-point shooter, and he knocked down the game-winning 3. And so Brooklyn just choked the game away. And it's funny, since the James Harden trade, and this is why I didn't like the trade, but I believe they can make a trade that can fix everything. And so just stick around for that. I'll discuss that in just a second. But since the James Harden trade, the Brooklyn Nets have a 122.6 offensive rating, which is the best in basketball by a wide margin, and would be, if the season ended today and the Nets had a 122.6 offensive ratings, that would be the greatest of all time. Here's the downside. Since the James Harden trade, they have a 119.9 defensive rating, which is the worst in the league this season. And if they finish with that rating, it would be the worst in NBA history. That's a problem. Yeah, I heard Nick Wright on FS1. He's got a good point with this one. I don't agree with Nick much, but he's right on this one. Is he said they're the make it, take it Nets. They scored, what was the final score? Like 149 to 147, I think was the final score. They're a great offensive team, and you should be if you have Kevin Durant, James Harden, Kyrie Irving, and James did not play last night, by the way. But I think there's one trade. If the Nets make this trade tomorrow, this, I think, would fix everything. Trade Kyrie Irving to the Knicks for some defensive players. Also, I think there's another move they can make to shore up their defense, okay? Fire Mike D'Antoni, okay, because Mike D'Antoni, obviously the head coach of the Rockets the last few seasons, he went to Brooklyn, and Mike D'Antoni, who's an offensive mastermind, but Mike D'Antoni has never, ever, ever, actually quite the opposite, been known for having great defenses. Okay, in Phoenix, the 7 seconds or less offense with Nash and Stoudemire. Obviously, Steve Nash is the head coach in Brooklyn now, and Amari Stoudemire is an assistant coach. But they were never known for their defense. And so there's that issue. Also in New York, he had Melo and that was a really good Knicks team. I think they had Tyson Chandler and J.R. Smith when J.R. Smith was, a great shooter. They had some really good players, Shumpert, and they were a good team, great offensive team. They were garbage defensively. Okay. So, and then with Houston, you had James Harden and Chris Paul. You also had Dwight Howard. Or no, he didn't. Excuse me, he never had Dwight Howard. He did also have Russell Westbrook, though, and some great shooters. PJ Tucker, Eric Gordon. That was a legit Houston team. Problem is, along with James Harden and Mike D'Antoni, they could not play defense whatsoever. And so, could you blame the lack of defense on Steve Nash? Absolutely. But I think if you fire Mike D'Antoni, and maybe you could steal a guy like, trying to think, of course, Mark Jackson's not known for defense, like a great defensive coach, because I think they messed up bad when they let Tom Thibodeau go to the Knicks to be their head coach. I think they should have snagged him while they had the chance to be sort of their quote-unquote defensive coordinator, and the Nets will be in a better spot. But again, when you have Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, James Harden, how much coaching do you really need to be great offensively? I mean, you need a guy to drop the plays, obviously. But KD can get whatever shot he wants. Kyrie, for the most part, can get any shot he wants. Same with James Harden. Nets offense is not their problem. I mean, Joe Harris last night was unconscious. 8 threes. He scored like 30-something points. And something else about Kyrie Irving. And this is what confused me about KD leaving Golden State to go to Brooklyn. Because I'm like, KD, you left Oklahoma City and Westbrook to get away from a guard who's not better than you, a point guard who's not better than you, taking more shots than you, and kind of a ball-dominant offense. You left that to go to Golden State because you wanted a motion offense. You wanted an unselfish point guard, Steph Curry, great shooter, Klay Thompson, and a great defensive player and leader, Draymond Green, and a great coach in Steve Kerr. Again, the motion offense. And it's like, okay, he wanted to leave OKC to go to Golden State. Fine. Well, now I want to go to Brooklyn so that I can get exactly what I had in Oklahoma City. Stagnant offense, at least offensive system. A point guard. Again, I would take Kyrie over Westbrook any day of the week. I know Westbrook was amazing last night. He had like 41, 10, and 8. He had a great night last night. Russell Westbrook, every team he goes to, it's just like they're not the same. Post-Westbrook as they are pre-Westbrook. When they have Westbrook than before they had Westbrook. How many all-star teammates has Russ played with that have been much better since they left him? And so that's why I'm confused with Kevin Durant. Is he left Russell Westbrook, a point guard who took more shots than him, and we all know Russell Westbrook is not in the same galaxy as Kevin Durant when it comes to shooting. Kyrie Irving is obviously a better shooter than Russell Westbrook, but he still is not in the same stratosphere as KD shooting the ball. KD is one of the 10 greatest shooters ever. He can, I've talked about Kevin Durant many times in the show. He can get whatever shot he wants. Whatever shot he wants. Whether it's, he can pull up from 35, okay? His mid-range is automatic. He can get to the rim. He's a phenomenal free throw shooter. He is the greatest. I've said this also in this show. Kevin Durant is the greatest offensive player of all time. You can have Jordan. You can have the late, great Kobe Bryant, rest in peace, Kareem, LeBron. I'll take Kevin Durant over all of them. He can get whatever he wants. It does not matter. Because he can, while he may not be as great of a driver to the basket as LeBron, right? He still gets the rim with ease. His fadeaway may not be as great as that of Jordan and Kobe, but his fadeaway is still automatic. He's 7 foot. He can shoot over anybody. When he shoots, it's like a 9-foot trajectory. Nobody can block that. By the way, he can cross you up like a point guard. And so, he's a cheat code. He's my favorite player to use on 2K because he can do anything. And so that's what I think Brooklyn needs to do. Is we saw a few games where it was just KD and Harden when Kyrie was off doing whatever he was doing, taking like 2 weeks off randomly without telling the team. But we saw Harden and Kevin Durant. They were lethal. They were unbelievable. And so, of course, offensively, they're going to be fine. Nobody's worrying about the Brooklyn Nets offensively. Even if, I think Kevin Durant's the best player in the world. Even if Kevin Durant goes to the side, they're still going to be amazing offensively because you have Kyrie Irving, James Harden. You're going to score a lot of points. But for the life of them, they cannot get a stop to save their life. And so, and I think they made a mistake trading guys like Jared Allen, who is a great rim protector. Jared Allen's in Cleveland. Taurean Prince is a good defender. And so I don't know what they were thinking. But they have an opportunity to make up for it. Trade Kyrie Irving, get some defensive players, and fire Mike D'Antoni as one of the assistants with the Nets. I think if they do that, because before the season started, I predicted the Lakers to play the Nets in the finals, and I took the Lakers to win in 6 games. To me, Brooklyn is not the favorite today to make it to the finals. If Brooklyn played Philadelphia in the Eastern Conference Finals, I would take Philadelphia. Have you seen Embiid and Simmons? And Doc Rivers has done an unbelievable job there. Tobias Harris has surprised me a lot this season. He's averaging almost 20 points a game. I think he is averaging 20 points a game. Danny Green has found a home in Philadelphia. Like, Philly is legit, man. They are absolutely a title contender. And so, Milwaukee, I'd probably take Brooklyn over Milwaukee. I don't feel too confident about that pick at all. Because, the Nets, again, let me put this in perspective. In regulation, against the worst team, who had the worst record in the NBA, they gave up 149 points, including a 48-point fourth quarter. 48 points. That shouldn't have, Golden State, I remember a few years ago, had like a 50-point quarter in one night against the Clippers. Well, that's Golden State. They got Steph Curry and Durant and Klay Thompson and some really good shooters off the bench. Yeah, you should score, 50 and a quarter occasionally, once or twice a year. But as great of an offensive player as Bradley Beal is, it's Bradley Beal, Westbrook, and a bunch of guys I've never heard of. Bertans is a good shooter. Davis Bertans, really good shooter. Thomas Bryant? Who are these guys? And you gave up 149? That's unacceptable. Again, some of that has to do with lack of effort. Some of it is just you suck at defense completely. And so, and something with Kyrie Irving, this is why I think they should trade Kyrie. Because one, they already traded for Harden. You dang sure aren't gonna trade Kevin Durant, who's one of the best players of all time, right? Kyrie everywhere has been. In Cleveland pre-LeBron, Cavs were garbage. Okay, and then once he got LeBron, well, LeBron makes everybody work, right? And Kyrie is amazing. And not to say LeBron made Kyrie great. Kyrie is a very good basketball player. As a matter of fact, he's an all-star. Nobody questioned. Kyrie's an all-star. He's averaging 26 a game, 6 assists. He's a really, really good basketball player. I think he's the third best point guard in the league behind Steph Curry and Damian Lillard. Absolutely. But this is not going to work long term. This is not going to beat the Lakers in the finals. I know the Lakers are, not have it looked great. They're taking an East Coast road trip. Anytime a West Coast team goes on the road for an East Coast road trip, and they're playing like Cleveland and Detroit and Atlanta. I think they're playing the Hawks tonight. The Lakers are. You're not going to be your best self, but when you're home at the Staples, they're borderline unbeatable. I know their home record hasn't been great this season. It's the Lakers are like the Chiefs, in my opinion, this year's Chiefs, to a lesser degree, because I compared this year's Chiefs, Kansas City Chiefs, to the 2018 Golden State Warriors. It's like they're the best team in the league. They don't finish the season perfect. They don't look so hot, towards the end of the regular season. But we all kind of know, Golden State's going to win the finals. Kansas City's going to get to the Super Bowl. Lakers going to get to the finals. I mean, who's their threat in the West? LA, the Clippers. You worry about the Clippers couldn't get past Denver. Clippers blew a 3-1 lead to Denver. Denver, well, they already played last year, and Denver is Jokic is playing out of his mind right now. But outside of Jokic, Denver has clearly regressed from last year. And the Lakers last year, when Denver was better than they are now, the Lakers beat them in 5 games, and it was fairly easy. Who else? Golden State, not without Klay, they're not going to threaten the Lakers. Who else? Utah. I like Utah a lot. I really do. I think Utah. I really do believe Utah could get to the Western Conference Finals. They're not beat the Lakers. I mean, come on now. I love Donovan Mitchell. Love that kid. I think he is developing into a superstar. Rudy Gobert is probably the best defensive player in basketball. And they've got shooters everywhere. Ingles, and obviously Mike Conley's a great point guard, and Jordan Clarkson is playing amazing. He's truly found a home in Utah. But nobody's threatening the Lakers and the Nets. With this kind of defense, giving up 149 to the Wizards, forget about throw your championship hopes in the garbage, man. And again, wherever Kyrie goes, Cleveland was trash when Kyrie was their best player. Boston never reached their full potential when Kyrie was their best player. The last 3 seasons, 2018, 19, and 20, the Celtics, obviously years before and after that, but they were in the playoffs. 2018, Kyrie got hurt, missed the rest of the season. Celtics with kids. Jason Tatum was like 20 years old. Jaylen Brown was 21. Terry Rozier was like 23. They had a bunch of kids in that roster. Even their coach was young, right? Brad Stevens. And the Celtics were a game away from the NBA Finals without Kyrie Irving, who we would all obviously acknowledge was their best player. Without him, they were a win away from the NBA Finals. Okay? The next year, Kyrie is healthy for the playoffs, and they sweep the first round. They win game 1 against the Bucks, but then the Bucks just blow them off the court the next 4 games, and they get beaten 5. Kyrie leaves, and the Celtics get within 2 games of the NBA Finals. Brooklyn last year, when KD was hurt. KD obviously missed all of last season with the Achilles. Kyrie was their best player, obviously. They had a losing record with him and a winning record without him. So long story short, you can be a talented player. You could score a lot of points. That doesn't make you a winning player. But, I just talked about Matthew Stafford. Matthew Stafford, I call him Stat Padford. I've heard that thrown around a lot, and I think it's true. Matthew Stafford is Stat Padford. He puts up the numbers, but name a signature win. Is he a winner? Is he a winning quarterback? Is Kyrie Irving a winning basketball player? No, he's not. He does not have a ring without LeBron James. Okay? The Nets are not relevant if Kyrie is their best player. He's actually the 3rd best player behind, obviously, KD and Harden. And so, I think they absolutely try. And I'm not blaming Kyrie for the loss last night, but just of the totality of the season, what we've seen thus far from the Brooklyn Nets is clearly they're amazing offensively. And it's not like if they trade Kyrie, they're going to be like, oh, terrible offensively. They've got 2 of the top 6 best offensive players ever. I think KD's the greatest ever. Offensively, the greatest offensive player we've ever seen. James Harden is up there, man. I mean, he's in the top, he might be in the top 5. I'd probably put him just a tick outside of it. I put LeBron over him, Jordan, Kobe, Kareem. So I put Harden just outside of the top 5 scorers. So you could trade Kyrie, get some good defensive players, also fire Mike D'Antoni, And, I get it. Hiring a coach off the street might not be the most popular move in Brooklyn, but it may shore up your defense, which, it's cliche, but it is. You do, defense wins championships. You can't have just defense to win championships, but you also can't have just offense. You can't be a great offensive team and a garbage defensive team, and, the other way around. You can be a great offensive team, which the Nets clearly are, but you got to have something defensively. You got to have something. You can't give up 149. If they gave up 149 points to the Lakers, it'd be unacceptable. And I think the Lakers are going to be the 2021 champs. You dang sure can't give up 149 points to the Wizards. Like the worst team in the East. So this is bad. I mean, Brooklyn's got an opportunity. They got one last chance to prove to me, okay, you guys can beat the Lakers. Trade Kyrie for some good defensive players that can either come off the bench or occasionally start. And fire Mike D'Antoni and hire, I can't think of any particular name, maybe David Fizdale. Could hire David Fizdale and shore up your offense. But this is not good at all. Yeah, come on, Brooklyn. Come on. 149 to the Wizards. Y'all got to be better than that. That's embarrassing. So that is all the time we have for today's show. Thank you guys for joining on this Monday. Be sure to catch us Thursday and Friday, of course, right here, wherever you're watching, YouTube, Facebook Live, or Twitter. So hope everybody has a great week. See y'all on Thursday night. God bless you all. Peace out.